Just to let you know, Echoplex, most of the people that's on your channel are all sock accounts.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. This is the flagship podcast of Comcast, claiming they fixed my internet, so we might not have any dropouts tonight. That'd be fantastic. Anyway, you can find this podcast on any podcatcher. If you have a podcatcher that you like and we're not on there, please email me and let me know. Emails, of course, in the show notes. You can support this project by going to echoplexmedia.com and clicking the support tab. Of course, the best way, a couple best ways. One is buying merch like this tinfoil hat I'm wearing. The other is just supporting the project via memberships over via Fourth Wall. That's eplex.store. And if you're a Patreon user and don't want to sign up for yet another thing, I understand. You go patreon.com/echoplex. I am producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr. We're going to continue. We just added someone to our cast of characters here for the Intellectual Dollar Tree. His name is Andrew Gold. We came across him while we were trying to cover another story, or while we did cover another story. People who've been watching the channel know about our discussions of a certain anti-Scientology influencer. Well, that's how we found this Andrew Gold guy. My understanding is that he claims he was fired from the BBC when in fact he never worked for the BBC. He may have had a documentary that they purchased at one point. Though I could have a complete misunderstanding here, but we do know that for the intellectual dark web type people, you do have to claim to have been canceled from some kind of legacy institution. So that's his IDW cred. He'll be interviewing crotchety old man, Richard Dawkins. So this will be the, we'll call this the Transpanic Power Hour. And no time like the present to get going, I suppose. Sorry about this.
I'm with Richard Dawkins today, the preeminent evolutionary biologist. Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good, good. I spoke to David Baddiel yesterday. He's got a new book out called, and I was interviewing him, and I accidentally started the podcast by saying, David Baddiel, who wrote the God Delusion. And he went, no, stop, I'll stop you there. It's the God Desire. Have you come across it?
I've come across him, I think, but anyway, carry on.
One of the things I discussed with David is he was talking about where he differs from you because you're both atheists and he writes about atheism. And he said that he believes sometimes there's sort of a macho thing going on in atheism where we say we're not scared of certain things. Ricky Gervais, for example, and I've heard you say about the afterlife, you know, I was not alone.
Not being afraid of the afterlife isn't macho.
So it doesn't bother me. Is that how you really feel, or is it something you have to say to yourself for comfort?
It's something I feel. I don't think of it as macho. I mean, it's just rational, actually. I mean, I think I probably quoted Mark Twain saying, "I was dead for billions of years before I was born and never suffered the smallest inconvenience."
Yeah, David, I think he quoted Bertrand Russell, who said a similar thing along the line, which is what he was saying was macho, I think.
Just fun fact, a lot of things that are attributed to Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain, are apocryphal, and he didn't say it. I don't know if the one Dawkins just brought up is. I think he did say that, but anytime you see a Mark Twain quote on the internet, you should be highly skeptical of that. It's a 50-50 shot maybe that he never said it.
About the scorn for people who fear death.
Yeah, Bertrand Russell said, "When I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall survive. I'm not a young man, and I love life, but I would scorn to shiver with terror at the thought of annihilation." That's an exact quote from Bertrand Russell.
How do you have these?
I don't have many. I don't know.
I mean, people remember things, Andrew.
I even looked
It's
at it
not
just before,
complicated.
and I already forgot half the words. So it's just the way different minds work, I suppose. Mine doesn't work quite so well. But David was saying, he does fear the death, the afterlife, and or no afterlife, I should say, and the fact that, I guess his point was, right now I am alive and I do feel things. So right now I do fear that there'll be nothing afterwards.
Yes, it's very understandable. We have to live in the moment, because when we're dead, we don't exist at all.
This is like
There's
pouring
nothing
old
to fear
fucking
there.
10 years ago new
There's a
atheist
lot to
crap
miss.
so far.
Because if you love life, as Bertrand Russell said he did, and I do, then it's very sad to miss life. It's very sad to miss out, if you're a scientist, on all the things that are going to happen. I mean, things are developing all the time, and it would be wonderful to know what people will know in 500 years' time. That would be a supremely interesting thing. And so it is sad to miss that.
Yeah. It actually keeps me up at night. So I had this whole existential crisis talking to David Baddiel yesterday, just thinking, what can I think of that will comfort me in this? And
Get the fuck out of here, drama queen.
That's what I mean when I say, so Ricky Gervais also said that, I was dead for millions of years before, I'd be dead for eternity after. It doesn't work for me to comfort me. Have you got anything?
Yes.
I mean, what works for me is when you're dead, you probably won't know it. you won't be around to notice.
No. I just don't think there's any point in being comforted by a lie.
No.
So better face up to the truth, really.
If you could inject a serum into your mind or something that would make you believe the lie just for comfort's sake, would you do that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's an interesting question, and make me believe a lie? No. Make me not worry about a truth that worries me about it. What I worry about at present, yes, I think. If say, I can't think of an example, but I could imagine being frightened of something or being upset about something, and a drug that you inject that makes you no longer upset. But I don't think I'd want a drug that made me believe a falsehood.
I suppose that's a bit Brave New World with the soma that they put into.
It's a very good parallel, yes. And the savage in Brave New World actually had this argument with the world controller, Mustafa Mond, where the savage was saying Shakespeare's good, and Mustafa Mond was saying yes, but the downside of that is you have all the terrible emotions and sadness and things that you get in Hamlet and Othello and Romeo and Juliet.
But that's like a movie. It's like why people enjoy entertainment and fiction. This is like really, really like masquerading as intelligent conversation here. That's why I just don't pretend to have intelligent conversations. If I have intelligent, interesting, or philosophical conversations, it's completely by accident.
It was saying, that's what I want. And Mustafa Mond said, you're welcome.
When I read that as a teenager, I was on the side of the savage going, yeah, Shakespeare's great and all this stuff. And I reread it recently and I found myself a little less clear on where I stand. Because I thought, gosh, I do worry a lot and it would be nice to just take a drug and be fine.
Yes, I can see that.
But you wouldn't take that one that makes you believe there's an afterlife.
I wouldn't want to make me believe in a falsehood. I might take one that makes me not worry about something I do worry about.
A lot of my viewers and subscribers do believe in an afterlife. They believe in religions and things, because this channel primarily at the moment we focus on cults and things like Scientology. Often they'll say, I can't believe people believe in Lord Xenu from Scientology, but the real God is our Lord and Jesus and things like that. I don't.
But to be fair, at Scientology, Xenu is the bad guy. They don't have like an imaginary friend or whatever. They have an imaginary enemy.
Alienate those people, of course, who are watching and might be interested. But one thing I was wondering, and I think you actually, there was a recent interview you did with Piers Morgan and you sort of touched on it. I think it felt like you didn't really believe that he believed that there's this afterlife and God and things like that. And I
said that, yes.
Yeah. How do you?
Well, that's awfully fucking shitty. Like if somebody tells me they believe in God and the afterlife and shit, I just got to take their word for it. Because like, who am I to tell somebody else what they believe?
Think they don't deep down believe it.
I can't speak for them, but in the abstract, something made me think Piers Morgan didn't believe. I think Piers Morgan's a fool. So I'm not really much interested in what he believes, actually.
Well, then why'd you go on his show? I bet he didn't. Did he call Piers Morgan a fool on his show? I don't like Piers Morgan, but I don't think he's a dummy. I just don't like him.
Oh, you said something similar off air, and I didn't think you would repeat it. Well, he interrupts a lot, doesn't he?
Sure, you can say that again.
I mean, I don't know. When I've had people on to talk to me, like via Discord or whatever, or when I've interviewed people who I disagree with, I interrupted them a lot. I think even if anybody was here for the time I interviewed the guy who believed he used a track phone to speak to ghosts, I interrupted him plenty to try to get clarification on what the shit he was talking about. But I had a great time talking to him. He seemed super nice, and we had a fun conversation.
So you think he doesn't? Oh, I don't know. So maybe he's playing to his, or some people might play to their spectators by.
There's maybe plenty of people who play to their audience, yes,
and suggest they have a belief in spirituality, and God, and things like that. Man, I always wondered that. I suppose there's so many examples of people who are religious, but when they're about to die. Again, I remember now Piers Morgan was saying, doesn't it give you comfort thinking that they're going to the afterlife of friends of yours and things? But people don't. People are terribly depressed when their friends die.
If they really did believe it, then they'd be saying things like, oh, you're going to die. Good for you.
Yeah.
But there are people who, after someone dies, if you go to a funeral or whatever, they're like, oh, they're in a better place now. I remember it's a good thing I didn't go to any or many funerals like 15 years ago when I was one of those shitty atheist types. Because I'd have been like, I might have said something, but it like makes somebody feel better to think that someone's in heaven or whatever. Like people do believe that their loved ones went to a better place. That's fine. They can believe that. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Uncle Charles, when you see him,
I'll come with.
Yes, yeah.
How fantastic. I wonder if belief is sometimes, you've seen my exorcism film, and yes. I do work on cults and things like that. Do you think belief might be...
You don't really do work on cults, Andrew. You interview former Scientologists and people from the anti-Scientology community. That's not really doing work on cults. You're a talk show host, which is a fine thing to be. I'm a talk show host.
Of course, it's a coping mechanism for the afterlife and not knowing what's happening when we die. But is it also, for some people, an excuse to do terrible things?
In what way?
If I believe that there's a God and I'm working for him, I can...
Oh, of course, yes. I mean, if you really, really believe that your God wants you to kill infidels, and some do, and they really, really believe it, that is very dangerous, of course.
Yeah. Do you think there's something about the human need to believe in these things? Like, what is it about us that makes us believe?
I don't understand why something that you can call a need to believe or getting comfort from belief actually makes you believe. You can't will yourself to believe something. Either you believe it.
You can talk yourself into believing something. Yeah.
I want to believe.
Like you're always talking yourself into shit. I don't know what I mean, like maybe something so fundamental as that, it might be harder to talk yourself into believing it. But yeah, I think we talk ourselves into believing all kind of shit. I'm talking myself into believing something right now.
I do. If the evidence doesn't support it, how can you believe it?
Well, people often bring up Pascal's wager, don't they? And they say,
Well, ridiculous, yes.
I get told it all the time, like, you might as well believe, because then you can go. And it's like, do your beliefs work that way, that you can just make yourself believe a thing?
Well, that's, of course, one point. You can't make
But that's somebody probably, when someone says that, that's somebody who already does believe, and they're trying to give you a justification for their belief. They're not necessarily trying to convince you to believe
something. And the other thing about, plenty of things about Pascal's wager, another thing is, maybe it's the wrong god. I mean, you get up there and discover he's Baal or Mithras
or Piers Morgan.
Or well, no.
Sit me, I'm God.
And also, even if the god you think you're sucking up to, what kind of a good god would reward you for sucking up in that way rather than actually being rational?
This guy read a shitty boss
as well. If there's a God, he doesn't want me to be on my knees doing all this pious, boring stuff.
No.
I don't know. At what point in your life did you realize you were an atheist?
About 15.
Do you remember what made that happen?
Well, understanding Darwinism.
Well, I think that's fair enough. At some stage...
This is like heavily edited, but don't like a lot of religious people just say that God is the reason for evolution by natural selection, that's the way that God created the universe? That God created the universe with properties such that evolution by natural selection is possible. That's not even quite the intelligent design argument, but I've definitely heard people say, well, God just made evolution happen. I mean, that's how a God works. It does everything and it does nothing.
Every animal who ever lived belonged to the same species as its parent, yet you are descended from a fish.
Yes.
Can you explain
that? Well, that's
that?
absolutely true. You are descended from a fish. So if you go back and back and back and back and back far enough, you'll come to a fish. And yet, every single generation is the same species as the previous generation. The change is so gradual. So it's like when you change from a child to a teenager to an adult to a middle-aged to an old. There's no one day when you say, I've stopped being middle-aged now and my birthday's come and I'm now old, or I've stopped being a teenager. Actually, well, that's the one case where legally you can say that I'm now reached voting age, which is a fiction, of course. But actually, it's a gradual change all the way through, embryo to baby to infant to toddler to etc. And so there's no one moment when you change from one of these states to another. And exactly the same in our ancestry. There's no one moment when any species changes into another species. It happens all gradually. But if you take that gradual process back and back and back far enough, you'll come to a fish.
That's amazing. Was there then...
That's amazing.
And I'm being slightly facetious when I ask, because I don't know enough about it, but was there then one fish and then the fish's son had like half a leg and then like a tiny bit of a leg and so on?
Well, kind of. Yes. Okay. I wouldn't put it like that, but yeah. Sort of, yes.
Sort of. How is this?
Would you
how did it happen?
Well, there was a group of fish which did have fins, which were kind of like legs, and which were evolved into legs. And the modern relations of those fish are lungfish and coelacanths, and they were a group of fish on their own. They were once rather widespread, and now they're rather rare, except that we are descended from them. And they were fish whose fins became leg-like, and they emerged onto the land, and their fins turned into legs, and you can trace the actual bones which became the humerus and the radius and the ulna and the femur and the tibia and the fibula. Yes, so that's pretty much what happened. But it happened so gradually. There would never have been a moment when you said, "Oh, there's no longer a fish."
I find that's fascinating, and it really.
But it's logically necessary. It's not. I'm not revealing to you any facts. It's just once you accept it. Well, that of course is a fact. But once you've accepted that, then what I've just said has to follow.
And then religion, as we know it, and those kinds of beliefs can't then follow.
Well, that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's plenty of, that's the thing, is there's plenty of people who are religious who also understand the theory of evolution via natural selection. They just compartmentalize. It's fine. People do it all the time. People do it with all kinds of different beliefs.
Then are there other kinds of magical thinking? I'm thinking particularly of what's happened
here we go.
recently with sort of Maori New Zealand language. Is that another kind of sort of the so-called postmodernism? Is that
I think you're alluding to a controversy which has arisen in New Zealand recently.
So-called postmodernism. This is great. Here we go. We're going to get into the part where people who don't know what the fuck postmodernism is talk about anything they don't like being postmodern.
Which I got involved in because I was in New Zealand, where the New Zealand government is trying to push the idea that Maori, quote, ways of knowing should be taught in science classes. And it's this sort of bending over backwards to be nice to an indigenous minority. Of course, you need to, my view is, of course, you need to teach the mythology of the country in which you live, and that's important as mythology, but not as science. And it's
well, maybe you teach it as history or cultural anthropology or something like that.
And muddling to New Zealand children to teach them, on the one hand, to teach them what we know about the origin of the universe and the origin of the world, and we know quite a lot, not everything. And at the same time, to say that it's because of the...
I'd suggest to you we really don't know much about the origin of the fucking universe. I think that's a pretty big statement there.
Sky Father and the Earth Mother and stuff like that, which is pure mythology.
Yeah, I think you were saying that you wrote that there are some bits that some good bits we can take from Maori.
Well, of course you can. I mean, you can take some bits from it, from any culture's folk beliefs, but there's no particular reason why you should take the folk mythology of one people any more than any other. I mean, scientific knowledge is unique and it's worldwide. They wrongly categorize it as Western. It's not Western at all. It belongs to all of humanity. Science is the way we know about the truth. Science has equipped itself with mechanisms for avoiding self-deception, subjective judgment. So the only approach to the truth is the scientific way, and that belongs to all humanity and is not to be regarded as, you just mentioned postmodernism, that's now, not to be regarded as the property of one particular cultural group.
It reminds me of, I had a Professor John McWhorter, he came on to talk, the linguist, to talk about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, the idea that language can shape feelings and almost give you superpowers to an extent. You know, there's a tribe in Australia that apparently can use like a GPS in their head, a satellite navigation, because they use west and north and east instead of left and right. It's all a bit wishy-washy, and a lot of people in linguistics.
Well, it's not like a GPS. It's that they sort of have. I bet it doesn't work if you drop them like somewhere they're not familiar with. They're probably using landmarks or like where they think or they believe a landmark to be, to kind of indicate like, okay, well, that thing is to my west. And then if you know what's to your west, you can from that determine north, south, and east.
That look at all these other languages that bestow us with superpowers and they're better languages. And John McWhorter said the problem with that kind of talk is we have to then say that there are also things in our language that are better, clearly, than in other languages, and nobody wants to do that in academia. Is that a problem you find in academia in general?
Yes, I wasn't aware of that particular... I read some of John McWhorter, but I wasn't aware of that. It sounds very interesting.
He's great. Yeah. Yes. So do you come up against... I mean, do you have colleagues and professors who you think... Gosh.
Wait, is Richard Dawkins even still in academia? I thought he was like retired and was just like has been on the speaking circuit for a very long time.
Towing to this kind of, I suppose it's woke is a word that no one likes to use these days, but that kind of thing.
I don't have many colleagues who do, but I read about them.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Is that something that should be put in the sort of beliefs box alongside belief in a deity?
Well, you'd have to specify exactly what you mean, but I'm inclined to think yes. I don't...
What do you mean? Like when they say woke, well, you'd have to specify what you mean, but also yes? All right, dude.
I mean, it is a religion in all respects, but there are similarities. It's not supernatural, but things like...
Oh, let's go, everybody. It's going to be trans people. He's going to go after trans people. Watch.
The collective guilt, which white people...
Oh, no, he's going with white guilt. Oh, out of left field. Oh, God. I don't even like the term guilt being used there. It's just an acknowledgement of history, an acknowledgement of like what has happened in your society if you live in a country that people consider to be a white country. And it's that we probably weren't here first, and we did a bunch of bad shit to the people that were here. And in America, for a very long time, we were even fucking importing people over here because we didn't want to do the hard jobs, and we also didn't want to pay the people that we wanted to have come over to do the hard jobs. Do I feel personally guilty about that? No. But do I acknowledge that that was a big fucking problem? And there's a ripple effect from the past to the present and into the future from that having happened? Absolutely. And if in whatever way I should I work to try to remedy those things? Fuck yeah. I can't do much as an individual, but maybe as groups we certainly can.
Encouraged to feel about the dark past of slavery and things has a very strong resonance with original sin, the Christian doctrine that we're all born in.
I mean, that is America's original sin if you want to get fucking technical about it. Yeah, slavery is the United States of America's original sin. Does it mean the same thing as like sin in the Bible or sin in Christian religion? Not really, but it's just that you've taken the supernatural part out, and where the supernatural thing existed was actually a fucking real problem.
The sin of Adam. We inherit the sin of Adam. Adam never existed, and they know that, but nevertheless still talk about it as original sin. So that there is that. I think John McWhorter has actually made that analogy. I believe he has. If he hasn't, I have anyway.
A lot of people in America have referred to slavery as the original sin of this country. Going way back before fucking John McWhorter and maybe even Richard Dawkins were even alive.
So that's a powerful analogy to religion. I think, also the belief that you can become a woman by saying you're a woman. And so even if you have the anatomy of...
I knew the transphobia was coming. I knew the fucking transphobia was coming.
Penis and scrotum and things, by simply standing up and saying, I am a woman, you become a woman. That's very like the Catholic doctrine that by a priest blessing bread and wine, it becomes the body and blood of Christ. And the Catholic theological justification for that is the Aristotelian distinction between the essence of something, the true substance, and the accidentals. The fact that wine remains an alcoholic liquid is just its accidentals, and the true substance becomes the blood of Christ. And that's very like saying the accidentals of my body is male, but the true substance is I'm a female because I declare myself to be female. So that's another analogy with, in this case, Christianity.
So this guy's they always do this. He's conflating what he believes is biological or anatomical maleness and femaleness with the social construction of men and women in society.
Suggest that Christianity, there's something about Christianity that is innate to our evolutionary psychology, that original sin, for example.
I don't know about that. You're probably thinking of some sort of Jungian archetype there. I suppose it's just possible. I wouldn't want to pursue that too far, I don't think.
I quite like the concept of the status game by Will Storr, this writer who I admire very much, and I think he just sort of popularized this idea that there are three main kinds of status, and we all seek it in tribes. It's evolutionary psychology, and you might tell me this is nonsense. I don't know, because I don't know much about this stuff. But
were you talking to somebody who is an expert in that particular field, and now you're asking somebody who's an expert in a completely different field to tell you if that's nonsense? This is crazy.
One would be dominance. You seek dominance because if you're the most dominant in the tribe, you'll get food and shelter.
I think that sort of thing is plausible, and okay. I think that that's the kind of good thing that we can get out of evolutionary psychology. Yes.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. Yes. And success is another one. If you invented the wheel, they're going to give you some food and shelter. Yes. And then if you're not successful or dominant, you resort to the third one, which is virtue. And you don't have to be a virtuous person. You just have to show the rest of the tribe that you are virtuous.
Yes.
Does that ring true to you?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I wonder if that's just.
But aren't those
but
first
I
two
guess when
things?
so
Well, dominance may not be a virtue, but being good at something is a virtue.
obvious, it doesn't work. So if someone's too obvious about trying to be virtuous in that tribe, you would all just go, get out of here.
Yes.
So I don't know. So I wonder if virtue signaling is part of our evolutionary psychology and maybe magical thinking as well to an extent. Did that help us survive?
I think virtue signaling could be magical thinking. I suppose it could. You could get status by getting a reputation as a magician who's able to communicate.
Magicians are cool as fuck, actually. Everybody knows they're not really doing magic, and that shit's still cool as fuck.
Or something.
That's true.
A witch doctor or... Yeah.
How do you get status then? Because we all have, if we all seek it, and I don't think you do by virtue, would it be success? What is it? What does that, did that drive you over the years? I've heard you mention physics envy. I know you're not a physicist.
Well, I've never said that I suffer from physics envy myself, I don't think, but it's a witticism which I attribute to Peter Meadower. I'm not sure if that's right.
Like biology envy, is there such a thing?
I don't know. I mean, academics generally, I think, seek status just like anybody else does, but I don't want to go into that too much.
The reason I thought of it is because, you had this interview last year, I think, with Jordan Peterson, and I noticed
That was very funny. We watched that on here. And I don't like Richard Dawkins, but at one point during the interview, Richard Dawkins looks right at Jordan Peterson and says something along the lines of, I know you're saying words, but you're not saying anything. It was amazing. Just watching this kind of crotchety old man fucking just not having it from Jordan Peterson.
differently when he spoke to you to how he normally does. He elevated language, and I wondered, I wonder if these guys who I see you guys as very high up, successful, intelligent, also have.
Oh, I think Dawkins probably doesn't agree.
I don't know. Did you sense that at all?
Oh, say that again. I'm not sure I got that. You said he spoke differently.
He used often he's doing sort of his YouTube and stuff, and he's speaking to. I suppose people like me, lay people, and he
the gullible. He's speaking to gullible people.
Shorter words, and when he was speaking to you, some of the sentences I found a little bit word salady. I find it very interesting, but it was
it's word salad, but this guy's a dumb fuck. That's word salad, but I also find it very interesting. No. Being dumbfounded by something is very different than it being interesting.
Quite know what and I noticed the same when he spoke to Stephen Fry, and I thought, when he speaks to you and Stephen Fry, is he elevating his language, and maybe there's this sort of competitiveness? I
wouldn't want to comment on that individual.
Yeah, Dawkins is I don't like Dawkins and shit, but he knows better. He's I don't want a bunch of fucking incels coming after me. Fuck that.
Just that I myself change my language when I'm when I'm writing for children. When I've written a couple of books for young people.
Just talking about code switching, we all do it. It's part of how you socialize. You're going to code switch. You're going to talk to somebody differently at a bar maybe than you will, I don't know, if you're applying for a job. It's called code switching. We all fucking do it.
And then when I'm writing for adults, let's say, I, without really thinking about it, if I read those books, I notice that my vocabulary does change. You have in your mind, I think, an audience, a sort of hypothetical audience, and it does change the way you speak, the way you write. It does for me.
With regards to, we were talking about, the binary women and men, and the idea that you can think that you're a man and be a man, or think you're a woman. Did you see that coming at all, 10, 20 years ago?
Not at all, no.
It is odd.
I think it's lunatic, actually. I mean, it's verging on insanity. So I did not see that coming. I mean, I could have imagined writing a satirical novel about it, but that's about it.
Yeah. I remember Ricky Gervais makes a joke about that when he says, I think it was just that. It was the one thing nobody said 10 years ago. That would be the worst thing you can say on Twitter is women don't have penises. Now that would get you.
Yeah.
No, Elon Musk will now elevate your account for that.
The only thing I can think to top that is identify as a dog. I mean,
God. I can imagine now there'll be so many angry comments even now just from this, and I don't know. It's a weird thing. I want to respect
identify as a dog,
everybody, but it just really is something that. Okay, so if you have to really stretch your mind, is there any scientific backing for the concept of somebody's, like, there's a woman brain and a man brain, and
there might be that. There might be that, but to go from that to saying because you have a female outlook on life or something, therefore you are a woman. I mean that is.
Well, but then again, this is the difference between your physical characteristics and like what you believe is socially constructed around gender and how you fit into that. These are two fucking entirely different things.
Language. It's one thing, and it's perfectly legitimate to say, I'm a man, but I feel a certain feminine attitude to things. I feel perhaps I think like a woman. That's fine. I mean that doesn't worry me at all. But to then say, therefore I am a woman, is just a betrayal of language.
But language always evolves. I'd love to have a linguist on to talk about these kinds of things, because language changes.
Truth and the virtues of honest communication.
I find the ideology very conservative because it tells me that if my son wants to play with things that are typically feminine or stereotypically feminine, then they have to change to fit in. They have to become.
Wait, no, but that's not what anybody's saying. I mean, you can find some dumb fuck on Twitter saying anything, I suppose. But that's not what any of this is about.
In with that.
Yes, I quite agree.
It's a crazy thing, really. So, okay, so if we are just to go out there a bit, I mean, are there aspects of brains that are male and typically female?
Probably. I don't know much about it. I wouldn't wish to deny that.
Well, it's even Andrew Gold's way of talking about is dumb too. The idea that like it's essentially you swapped out a female brain and popped it into a man's skull or whatever. That's a fucking very dumb way to talk about it too. But this Andrew Gold guy, the more content we watch of him, the more I realize is that I don't think he's very thoughtful, or I think he's playing to the audience that he's gathered through this sort of a fake smart person spiel that he puts on.
Not a very profound observation. I think that you can find aspects of feminine sympathy in some male people and vice versa, and it would be surprising if that were not so. But as I said, but to go from that to the positive statement, "I am a woman," is verging on insanity.
Is it dangerous?
No.
Well, I think that people who certain people like Kathleen Stock and J.K. Rowling have suffered in their lives and their careers.
J.K. Rowling lives in a fucking castle
as a consequence of speaking out.
And Kathleen Stock, nobody even heard of her until she decided she was going to be, till she like said some froggy shit about trans people and then wouldn't listen. And then people rightfully like were talking shit to her. And then she went on the I've Been Canceled tour. But then her grift didn't actually work. It was failure to grift for her. But like nobody even knew who the fuck she was before that. So I'm not sure that it hurt her career. Because like she's a public figure now, and I think she probably, even after her like I've Been Canceled tour went over, I bet she her income is higher now than when she was a professor.
On behalf of women, and they so far haven't, I think, actually suffered physical danger, but some of them have come close to it.
The saddest part about J.K. Rowling is that she was abused by her first husband and left in the street in a pool of her own blood in Portugal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, before she wrote Harry Potter. and she had a very difficult time during that time. So for her, it's a really personal thing,
Yes.
about women's spaces.
And then maybe Ms. Rowling, Joanne, I believe is her name, could take a look at some statistics on of violence and how it impacts the trans community, and maybe empathize a little bit with the trans community as it pertains to being the victims of violent attacks.
Changing rooms and things like that.
I did not know that.
It's so sad. It's so sad to think that. And then the Harry Potter stuff. I mean, it's an analogy for the Nazis. I don't know. Have you read Harry Potter?
I have, yes.
Did you enjoy it?
I didn't know. Well, yes, I enjoyed it. I held out against it for a while, but then I discovered that Stephen Fry was reading it, and
Yes.
I can't resist Stephen Fry, and so I listened to him, and I liked it. I mean, quite a lot of what I like is that she's actually sending up the magical stuff. I mean, it's kind of satirical. I didn't know it had anything to do with the Nazis. That's
the whole. Well, as it goes further into the whole mythology, I think there's like the good and the bad and the pure bloods.
okay. I was carry on. I've only read the first 2 or 3 books, I think.
Oh, they develop. It's funny because it's so brilliant. So I'm going to show off now, right? So I can speak 5 languages, and each time I learned a new one, I did it through Harry Potter in Spanish or French. So there's the 7 books. I'm not sure. And what's brilliant about it as a language tool is they start very much for children. They're like for a reading age of 11 or 12, and the writing becomes a little bit more complex.
Yes.
It's not Dostoevsky at any point, but it starts to get there by the final book. You're really in this big epic about
this guy pretends he's read Dostoevsky. Imagine that. They all pretend they've read that shit.
The bad people who want everyone to have the pure blood, like the Nazis.
Yes, that sounds very interesting.
So
I shall resume.
Yes,
my Stephen Fry listening.
He's great, Stephen Fry. I heard him talk a little bit about doing those audiobooks, and there were certain words he was tripping over.
But there's so many works of fiction that are an allegory for fascism, or can be read as an allegory for fascism.
I heard that. Yeah.
He asked J.K. Rowling, "Can I do different words?" And she said no.
Yes.
Which fair enough. If you're the writer, Gosh, Stephen Fry. Have you done debates with him? I'm just remembering now because I know he did Intelligence Squared. Was that with you or was Christopher Hitchens?
Yes, it was Christopher Hitchens. I've encountered him from time to time. I like him enormously. He's a wonderful man.
We should get him in. I'd love to meet Stephen Fry as well. Fantastic.
I'd love to meet Christopher Hitchens, but he's dead.
Person. So the J.K. Rowling thing I think is really sad. Do you notice, I don't know, there sometimes seems to be different decades where we're a bit more is the word censorious?
Yes.
Yeah, we're a bit more censorious for sort of a decade, and then we sort of relax a little bit. Yeah. Children rebel against their parents.
Yes.
Do you think that might be what's really going on?
Possibly. Yes, could be.
What does the poetry of reality mean? That's your Substack at the moment and podcast coming out?
Yes. Well, I think reality, as understood by science, is amazing and wonderful. And the fact that we can apprehend it, the fact that we can understand it, the fact that we, unlike any of our ancestors up to a century or so ago, 2 centuries maybe, really hadn't a clue why we existed and where we come from. And we now have a very good understanding of that. And it's beautiful. I mean, the beauty of understanding, the poetry of understanding is what I mean by science as the poetry of reality.
I suppose some people could argue, because they used to think stars were, holes in the heavens or something.
Yes.
That, in some senses, that's more beautiful than bubbles of gas, isn't
No,
it?
it's not. No.
And why? Is it because it's truth that it's more beautiful?
Well, partly.
Well, no, I mean, that's stupid. It's not more beautiful because it's true, right? This guy's an idiot. It's more amazing, actually, because of the distances and the mass. The sheer scale of it all is why it's kind of awesome.
Also, apart from being true, the alternative, the idea of it being holes in the sky, is just so petty. It's so small. it's so unromantic. It's just parochial.
I sort of wish it were true sometimes.
Oh, come on.
Because I want to continue living.
Well, that's okay. You go on, but I mean, believing that the stars are holes poked in the sky is not going to help you continue living.
Well, the suggestion would then be, like, if the heavens were beyond it and it's heavenly light pouring through, the suggestion would be that I then get to ascend to that plane.
If you want to go on living, I wouldn't go and live in the heaven of any religion.
I would.
Incredibly boring.
Yeah, better, well, less boring than the alternative.
I doubt it.
Really?
I doubt it.
I always think of, like, okay, because my religion would be, because I'm an atheist as well. And again, all my viewers start messaging, no, you're not, you're an agnostic because you don't know, or something like that. But, I think I would say I'm probably an atheist. But
that's because those are not mutually exclusive. Almost every atheist I know is agnostic, right? They're like, I don't know where the universe came from, and I can't really prove to you that there's no supreme being out there, but I don't believe it. There you go. That's atheism and agnosticism all at the same time. Boom, easy. It's like the most common atheism is an agnostic atheism. Going around telling people that there's no fucking God because fucking why? Nah, that's stupid. That's as dumb as telling people there is one.
Yeah. But my religion is sort of a thing probably at the back of my head that's going, but you're never going to really die. So you're going to be... maybe there'll be virtual reality. I was thinking about this, some sort of virtual reality that makes you experience time when you're in the virtual reality. You can spend years and years, but you're actually lying there in real life for just seconds.
Yes.
If they could slow down your mind or something like that. So I'm sort of holding out for that.
Wishful thinking.
Or that they'll discover something in quantum physics. Is there anything there?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Have Eric Weinstein on next. He'll fucking tell you about it. He'll use like a toilet paper roll and a fucking rubber band to explain the universe to you.
It's up to reality.
Never. Is there a time when that happens? Did you have angst younger about that reality?
Yes, I suppose so. Yes.
Professor Paul Bloom said recently, he was saying that you spend your first half of your life sort of writing your CV, and the second half is you're writing your eulogy. Does that resonate with you?
No. No, I think I don't make any distinction between first half and second half. I've been doing the same thing all the time.
He was trying to make me feel better, I think, about getting older. And he was like, yours get used, you'll accept more, and you'll look at your sort of...
I see, yes.
Feel better about getting older. Dude's like 35.
Yeah, well, I just carry on thinking I'm about 18 and getting on with what I do.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. The Poetry of Reality, tell me a little bit about what that's... I mean, it's a Substack now, right? And then it's going to be a podcast?
Yes, it is. And I shall be I'm doing much the same as what you're doing, I think. I mean, I shall be interviewing people and probably doing some contributions of my own, maybe writing stuff directly and putting up things that I've done before, putting up on the YouTube channel, putting up broadcasts and things that I've done before.
Yeah. Have you got interviewees in mind yet? Because I haven't received my invite yet.
I haven't given it very much thought, but yes, that sounds a good possibility.
Yeah. Would you get me on? I'd come.
You'd love it, would you?
Yeah, of course I would.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go on the Richard Dawkins show too. He won't like it though.
I think I can offer a layperson perspective to things. Maybe that's what you want.
I mean, I think we could talk about your Argentinian exorcist. Yes, that would be very good.
I would be up for that. You've had to say yes because I've cornered you now.
Yeah.
I won't get an email back later. I was looking at some of the discussions that are on your Substack because I think these are really interesting, and maybe we can go.
It's only been open for about a day, hasn't it? I think
so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a discussion? If I write something on my blog, is it a discussion? That's a weird way. A discussion. Isn't it just a fucking news, like an article?
These, I'm checking out all the stuff.
Isn't it a discussion to people or more? I don't know.
If you, okay.
Is that the dialogue?
Scientists in the US and Canada banned the words women, mother, and father.
No, they didn't.
That's not one of yours, actually. That's just me saying it, isn't it? There are some...
that they didn't. Nobody banned anybody saying that.
Words.
I never said that. Yes.
Yeah, that was just me. My notes were all mixed up.
Yes.
There are some words that... I suppose they go into the other side of your brain, I'm told. Again, you'll know more about this than I will. But I remember, again, Stephen Fry put his hand in some cold water. And if he swore a lot, it enabled him to do it for longer. And I think the reasoning was that these words were in a sort of, they weren't in the language, they were sort of on the other.
I see.
Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Yeah. So I just assume I'll assume you'll know all the sciencey things.
You could just put your hand in cold water for longer while you're swearing. If you believe it, then you'll probably be able to keep your hand in the water longer because you believe that you will be able to do it. Your brain is kind of a crazy thing, actually. Kind of interesting.
It's different domains, isn't it? And those words apparently go into the other side, swear words, sacred words. You might not say, well, I know I'm not allowed to say the N word, for example. Is that
but you probably want to.
reasonable?
I know nothing about what is what reasonable.
That we shouldn't say the N word.
Well, I think you have to. Yes, I mean, I think it's reasonable. Yes.
Yeah. Or there's
Oh, well, good. We'll take the small victory there where we can get it, I suppose.
for gay people,
Okay.
a
Right.
bundle of sticks.
Yes, I had to think about that. Yes. Okay.
Those are like, well, that's the this was also John McWhorter, actually.
Yes.
He was saying that these sacred words change. I love the linguistic stuff. And he was
Yes.
saying that sacred words change over time.
Yes.
So it was bodily functions, fuck, shit, hell. I don't mind saying these. It's not going to get my YouTube taken down. First was the religious ones. Hell, damn, those kinds of things.
Yes.
Then it was shit and fuck. They became
Yes.
they were, as we moved on as a society. And then it became identity. That's been the last 30, 40 years.
As long as
Wait, but while all that other stuff exists, there were slurs for people who were different than you. It's just that, some people didn't use slurs. They thought it was wrong way back when.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've moved into that, and it's. I guess some of us we're trying to come to terms with it, but they've become sacred like any other religion.
Yes, that's interesting. Yeah.
I said, like, well, what will be next? And he said, you never know, but it could be something like related to climate change, as that's going to become incredible. He said,
Yes.
imagine calling somebody a windmill.
Yes, that's interesting.
I like that. Yeah, I love thinking about those kinds of things, but it's with the linguistics,
I do too,
it
yes.
might just be a temporary phase with this identity thing.
Yes, yes, it might.
And there are
Yeah, it might be a
differences as well,
temporary
I suppose.
phase where we just don't use the N word. Maybe it's just a phase.
It often comes from a good place, doesn't it?
Yes, I think it does.
There once existed a single individual female who was the most recent ancestor shared by you and a baboon. That one individual female had two individual children, one of whom is your ancestor, the other is the baboon's ancestor. Discuss.
Yes, I'm interested in that. It's another of these things that's got to be true, but you can't. It's difficult to see why it's true. Since we do have a common ancestor with baboons, you have to go back and back and back and back, and sooner or later you're going to hit one individual mother who had these two children, and then we're both descended from her mother and her mother and her mother. But there has to be one point, which was the branch point. And
I'm not
was
sure
a
that's
thing-
true. I think it might be like a group of primates. I'm not sure that's true. I'd have to look into that.
individual, and not just baboon, but snail. Our common ancestor with a snail, which was way, way back in the Precambrian. And there has to have been an individual, which would have been, goodness knows, some kind of worm, I suppose. And we're descended from one child of that individual, and snails are descended from the other one.
Wow. Yeah.
Not just snails, but insects and crustaceans and spiders and
Wait a minute. No.
and on,
I mean,
on the other side.
I don't know, but
on our
I feel like it's not like that. I feel like the descendants would be like a grouping of worms, or a grouping of primates, or a grouping of whatever it is he's talking about here. I don't think it would be a single individual. I think like a grouping of worms or primates or whatever that breeded with each other, and then those all breeded with each other. I don't think it's like he's saying here. I don't think it's like he's saying here at all. There's no way. It has to be like a grouping.
our side would be starfish and sea urchins and tunicates and things.
The way my childish mind works is I'm seeing like a snail having sex with a starfish.
Well, you're wrong.
I know.
Yes.
I know. My mind creates a cartoon of everything.
Yes.
So, but I guess it was just all. So does that mean there's one baboon that all of us have come from?
No, one individual that all of us came from and baboons came from. I mean, they're modern animals just as much as we are. We didn't come from them.
Oh.
Well, you know that.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
I don't give it much thought. There's things I know, and then many years later, I don't know them anymore.
Yes.
I need to be reminded of them. If there, I think this is just. Oh no, this is you as well. If there is extraterrestrial life, it's nice getting your questions. I don't have to come up with questions. If there is extraterrestrial life, no matter how strange and alien it may be, there is one thing it will have in common with Earth life. It will be Darwinian.
Yes. What you're doing is you're quoting. On my Substack, I put up a sort of manifesto, and I thought,
well, then that's not really a question. You're just quoting back what this guy said.
The way to do it was to put up a series of statements like that, just one after another. I think about 20 of them, probably.
Yeah, everyone blew my mind.
And so that's that. And you've been reading out a couple of them, and very nice too. Thank you. And that one was, yes, if there is life elsewhere, and there almost certainly is, then it will be Darwinian. However strange it is, however alien it is, however hard it is for us to imagine the details of what it's like, I stick my neck out and say that one thing we can say about it will be Darwinian. It will have evolved by a version of Darwinian natural selection. I think that's the only possible way in which complexity, the sort of complexity we associate with life, could come into being.
It's such a fascinating
That's
thought.
open to refutation by somebody who could think of a better way.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, we only know that one way.
Yes.
So we have a confirmation bias.
Yes, exactly.
It's difficult to imagine. I suppose one other possibility, although it has, this is a cheat, I suppose, would be artificial life that was created by.
Yes, definitely, and but that ultimately comes from a Darwinian source. So yes, not just artificial life, but the technology generally, which has many of the attributes of life, the complexity of life, does not evolve itself necessarily. You can make a case that it does, but I wouldn't want to make a strong case for it. But if there is advanced technology on a planet, then ultimately that will have to have come from a Darwinian life form that designed it.
It's a really interesting thought. Do you give much thought to the, is it the Fermi paradox?
Where are they?
Yes.
Where is everybody? Yes. Fermi, the physicist who said, where is everybody? And he was wondering why they haven't made contact with us, why we haven't picked them up. You shouldn't wonder why they haven't arrived, and we're never going to meet them in person. I think the distances are too great, but it's a worthwhile enterprise to scan the heavens for messages, and it's an active SETI. Is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI is an active project which is, I think, well worth financing.
Do you think then that when the Navy, I know the last couple of years there's been some news about they've spotted UFOs and things like that. Do you think that might be just wishful thinking?
Yes, I don't believe that. I think that if there is ever a first contact, it will come by radio or by electromagnetic radiation of some sort.
Is that because again I don't know much about radio and electromagnetic? Is that just the standard that they would use as well?
Well, no, it's that it travels at the speed of light and it broadcasts in all directions at the speed of light, and therefore, since such huge distances are involved, you would not expect that an actual physical spacecraft would happen to come here. There are just too many other places for it to come to, and the probability of this one place in the universe, Earth, being the target of an actual mission is too low. But if it's being broadcast outwards from some point source, then yes, it's not unlikely that we would be, along with everybody else, every other part of the universe, bathed in this message, and so we would pick it up.
And yet, silence.
So far, but then we haven't had the technology to listen to it for very long, and I think there's quite a lot of hope that we will pick up something.
Do you think that would be the greatest discovery of all time?
Probably, yes. And certainly you could make a good case for that.
Would you accept?
But like, how do we even know that like a species from another world would communicate in a way that we could decipher?
If they came down and if they actually came here, but killed us all quite quickly and painlessly, that it might be worth it just for the moment of awe.
Well, I don't think that. But
Like that scene in the Terminator, in Terminator 2.
That they would be able to get here. I mean, if they picked up a return message from us, it would probably take 1,000 years to get to them, and so it's not a thing you can worry about actually physically coming here.
Except this is incorrect, actually. We are not only trying to receive broadcasts, SETI is also broadcasting. Not just SETI, we're just putting off a bunch of fucking radio waves. Like they're it's not, we're not just sitting here listening.
They've been planning it for so long in secret, and they used like wormholes or something.
Okay. I don't know enough physics to talk about that.
I suppose something that's more imminent and likely is maybe AI. People worry about AI, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
One thing I don't get, everyone's talking about, okay, we need the problem of alignment. We have to align our concerns with theirs, or, so that they want to do good for humanity, which in itself is impossibly difficult because every human wants something slightly different. And that if we get it wrong once and they're able to self-duplicate or whatever it might be,
yes,
self-improve, that we're done. That's it.
Yes.
But I don't understand why AI would want to get rid of us or kill us.
Well, it would depend upon what sort of aims were built into them, I suppose. I mean, you could say that if you build into them, maximize the total happiness and minimize the total suffering in the world.
Well, that would kill us.
It might. You could make a case for it, I think.
Oh my! Is that what you were going to say when I interrupted you? Sorry.
Yes. Well, just to point that depending upon what the utility function you build in is, you could. But this is very speculative.
It makes for a really sort of creepy dystopian novel, that this idea that we're doing you good. Like, I suppose that's HAL. Is it HAL 3000 in the
HAL? Yes. Do you know how HAL got his name, by the way?
No.
It's IBM one letter back in the.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
HI. Oh, I believe you.
Yes, IBM.
He had to check the alphabet in his head. Good job, Andrew.
Wow. Did that reflect concerns that IBM building all this computer stuff would be the end of us?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just a little joke that Arthur C. Clarke thought of at the time.
It's creepy, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid I can't let you do that. Or
yes.
Are you good at accents?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think an AI can be sentient?
I think I've got to say yes, but because we are, and we are built of physical stuff, and so there has to be some way in which whatever it is that our brain has that makes us sentient must be simulatable in a computer medium.
So if we built another Richard Dawkins just right here with all exactly the same stuff, he could even have your memories.
That is a fascinating thought. I think that's got to be true. And then the question, philosophers like that kind of thought experiment, and you start to wonder about things like, would we be exactly the same? I think would we diverge from that point? I suppose we would initially have exactly the same experiences and feelings, would one of us feel the pain of, if you stuck a pin in one, would the other one feel the pain? I think the answer to that is probably no. And as time goes on, our experiences would drift apart and we would no longer be the same person. These are it's quite a good thing that philosophers do this kind of thing. It's one of the things they do that I think is quite worthwhile. These sorts of thought experiments, impossible thought experiments like that.
Well, one of the first things about philosophy I read, I must have been about 7 years old, and I read this book, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe someone will write in and tell me, but it was pink, and I seem to remember there was like an elephant on it, but it was for teenagers to read, I think, or children, and it had this thing where this story where people go to Mars to sort of mine for whatever they're mining in Mars every day for work. They're commuting. So they were getting into a machine and it transports them there right away, like in Star Trek or whatever it is. And then you're on Mars and you come to realize what it's actually doing is destroying you and rebuilding you as a clone, I suppose, on the other planet. And now you can't get home. You know, and the question is, would you then walk into it and and go back home?
Yes, it's one of a family of thought experiments which I find interesting.
Would you?
I need notice of that question.
Yeah, I think I would just have to stay on Mars because I don't think that one of me that's created on Earth, I don't think I'd be aware of that existing.
Yes, no, you wouldn't be aware of it, no.
Make sure to get the Poetry of Reality, get it on Substack now, and it's going to be coming out, so check that out.
That was boring. That was boring and kind of like, I don't know, I guess boring was what I was going to say. We're not always gonna get good ones here for the Intellectual Dollar Tree because I don't pre-watch everything. I kind of like to make sure that my reaction to it is genuine. Yeah, that was a little bit boring, but at least it wasn't long. So I guess that's the show. We're going to keep an eye on Andrew Gold. We're going to see how this attempt to join what's left of the IDW goes for this guy. But next week, I promise it won't be another Andrew Gold. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, next week will be the second to the last Intellectual Dollar Tree of 2023. So we might start doing a little bit of a retrospective of the year next week. We'll see. We'll see if me and HK have time to start working on that. Anyway, that's been the podcast part of the show. Thanks for listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. If you are listening to that and you want the rest of the show, you can hit up patreon.com/echoplex or eplex.store, sign up at the $5 level or higher. And to your inbox every Thursday will be the entire show, including the post game. You'll also get the entire show for everything else, plus some other goodies. And of course, you can check it out live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. If you're watching live, just hang out. We're going to play a song and go into the post game. And I promise no more Andrew Gold tonight. This is Boomers by Periscope. Change the color of the lights in this room and change the content of my beverage.